Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunjavadi Paschachade Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Could you identify the thought behind selection of this topic to speak about while I'm here? Okay. Well, a few things come before Ram Navami, but that's okay. Okay. Well, most of what people know, most of the world, in India and outside of India, most of what the world knows about Valmiki is that he's the author of Ramayana. And that's a nice illustration depicting his writing of Ramayana. However, less well known is, beside the depiction of Valmiki and his origin found in Valmiki Ramayana, is the different versions or iterations during different days of Brahma, or kalpa, different days of Brahma. So you're going to hear, briefly, a description of 5 different days of Brahma when the origin of Valmiki is different. In different days, it's same Valmiki, but he makes his appearance in different ways during different days of Brahma. We're familiar with the most recent appearance of Lord Ramachandra. By the way, it's not the same yuga cycle when Krishna appears. Lord Ramachandra appears during the 24th cycle of the 4 yugas, and then the 27th cycle of the 4 yugas is when Krishna appears. So it's a big stretch of time in between Ramachandra's appearance. It's not just the previous Treta Yuga, and then he appears in Dwapara Yuga. That would be nice, but it's not the case, according to Srimad Bhagavatam at least. So this is a 2-part presentation, then another evening we'll speak part 2. The purpose of this evening is just to take a look at his background. And his name, Valmiki, means he who sprang from an anthill. That's the meaning of his name. Here's a nice chart, if you like charts. This one at the top is showing Kashyapa and Aditi. Aditi was one of 13 daughters of Daksha. And Aditi was married to Kashyapa, who was the son of Marichi, who was one of Brahma's sons. So Kashyapa married Aditi, and there were a number of sons, like mainly the Adityas, or the demigods, and one of those demigods was Varuna. And Varuna had a wife. Varuna's wife's name was Charshni, and then a son that came from Varuna and Charshni was Bhrigu. And there's the Bhrigu Part 1 and Bhrigu Part 2, and then Shaunaka Rishi was the son of Bhrigu. Shaunaka is the person asking the questions in Srimad Bhagavatam. Shaunaka was the son of Bhrigu, who was the son of Varuna and Charshni. Then in the center, it just says he was born from an anthill. Now, exactly how that happens depends on which day of Brahma we're speaking about. But the sprinkling of water was done by Lord Brahma, and from the anthill came Valmiki. And there's different explanations. And then over on the right side, it's not so much relevant for our discussion. But this ancestry that is shown above is drawn from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 18, Text 5, which reads, this is the BBT translation, by the semen of Varuna, the great mystic Valmiki took birth from an anthill. Now, this particular verse, 6:18-15, has commentaries. Here's Sridhar Swami's commentary. Both Bhrigu and Valmiki exhibited profound erudition and super excellent qualities of Vaishnavas. Hence they are called the extraordinary sons of Varuna. Whereas both Agastya, or the son of Mitra, and Vashishta, the son of Varuna, were Brahman realized monist Mayavadis, hence they are known as ordinary sons of Mitra and Varuna. So Agastya and Vashishta had Brahman realization, but they didn't have, they're not to be compared to Valmiki and the first of the Bhrigus. A very celebrated commentator in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is Govindaraj. Not so long ago, 17th century, he wrote an extensive commentary on the entire Ramayana. Very celebrated personality. And this is what he writes on the very first verse of Valmiki Ramayana. All through the countless years, trees and shrubs sprang around him, while an immense anthill rose on all sides, completely concealing him from view. Later on, Varuna, the lord of the waters, sent down heavy rains, which dissolved the strange tenement, that's the anthill. Coming out of it, the gods hailed him as the son of Varuna, as Valmiki. Now, this is directly taken from Ramayana itself, where Valmiki is the author, and I am the 10th son of Varuna. Gives the reference, the particular reference. Also in Uttarakhanda, later Sarga, this was Sarga 96. This is earlier, Sarga 10. Would you like a copy of this instead of having to hold your phone up and take pictures? Okay, let's do that because this is distracting. Okay. Thus was sung the Ramayana by the mighty son of Varuna. So in Valmiki Ramayana, he is identifying himself as the son of Varuna. Similarly, in Uttarakhanda, Valmiki confirms with Lord Ram that he had lived a pure life, never committed any sin. Now, there are other versions that give some background on who was Valmiki before he is Valmiki. And two sources say the same thing. The Brahmanda Purana, Skanda Purana, they speak of the dacoit, Ratnakar. So there he is in the forest, Ratnakar, and he sees Narada, and he raises a weapon to harm Narada, and Narada isn't disturbed. Narada asks, what are you doing? Ratnakar, it was a hunter, and in the course of his hunting, you know the story, he would kill animals as a hunter. But when he would kill animals, he would have kill animals. So Narada asked the hunter, why you have killing? If you're going to kill, I understand you have a family, you have to maintain them, but don't have kill because they suffer. So there was instruction with that gentleness of Narada, even this is not good. Could everyone shift forward? Those of you that like the back row, get used to not liking the back row and come forward, because people will come late and they'll have to do this every time. Please come forward. I'm going to stop until you come forward. Okay. So nice instructions. You're all familiar with this discussion with Ratnakar. And the animals have killed, they suffer. And Ratnakar was very surprised. I didn't know that they suffer. He said, yes. And I know it's your livelihood to maintain your family, but when you have killed the animals, who's going to take the karma? And you go ask your family, you're maintaining them, are they going to accept some of the karma, some of the suffering, because you're maintaining them properly? So we went back and asked them if they would share the sinful reaction resulting from killing animals to maintain the family. Guess what? Members of the family refused. So that was a wake-up for Ratnakar. So we went back to Narada and asked what to do. What's the guidance that you recommend for me? And you know the guidance. He chant Mara. He couldn't chant. No, he couldn't chant Rama's name, so he chanted Mara. And Ratnakar chanted Mara, Mara, Mara. And eventually it became Rama. So by chanting and chanting and chanting, an anthill grew up around him. This is Ratnakar. And his identity became dissolved with nature. The ants ate his flesh, and all he had left was bones, as he circulated his life air within the hollow of his bones. And sure enough, in course of time, Narada Muni came back, sprinkled some holy water, dissolved the anthill, and blessed Ratnakar, and gave him his name. Valmiki, one who was born from an anthill. So, in this way, Valmiki made his appearance. Lots of different images. This is just some places where they have a murti or some carving that indicate there's Valmiki meditating within an anthill. So that's Valmiki Ramayana. Then, as you know, there's different Ramayanas. So one of them was Ananda Ramayana. It is said, it's not certain, but there was Valmiki or some author in the 15th century, and how Valmiki appeared. This is version number 2. It was revealed in a conversation between Uma and Shiva. And the text presents that this is Valmiki Part 2. The second version of Valmiki as a hunter, or the narration is different than the Valmiki Ramayana, and is exchanged with a Brahmana named Shankha. So the hunter had a conversation with Shankha. And here's a summary of 5 different days of Brahma, or kalpas. Of course, the standard Valmiki Ramayana was the Varuna's downpour washed away the anthill surrounding him, and what his life before that is uncertain. And then there's the Ratnakar narration, where he was purified by Narada. There's this description of the hunter transformed by the Saptarishis, which is different than what Narada did and different than what Varuna did. And you hopefully have received, or if you didn't receive, you did receive. Okay. You sent it. Okay. If you didn't get it, tell her, and she'll see that you get it. It's a 11-page document with different histories in different days of Brahma, when there are different appearances of Valmiki according to different days of Brahma. All from Scripture. So the Saptarishis, there's the list of the Saptarishis: Kashyapa, Atri, Vashishta, Vishwamitra, Gautama, Jamadagni, and Bharadwaj, Saptarishis. And there's a connection between Valmiki and the Saptarishis. And the hunter was transformed by these Saptarishis, which is different than the other versions or the other days of Brahma when Valmiki made his appearance. In Mahabharata, there's a different version. Now, rather than reciting what that different version is, you can know that there's, from Mahabharata, there's a version, you can find it in that document. And then in Vishnu Purana, here's a Sanskrit phrase: since the descendants of Bhrigu, who are known as Bhargavas, appeared or emerged from an anthill, he is known as Valmiki. That's Vishnu Purana. Generally speaking, within our mind of Lord Chaitanya, we accept, especially as valid evidence, the Srimad Bhagavatam. At the same time, there's highest regard for Valmiki Ramayana. And then these other Puranas, Bhavishya Purana and Vaivarta Purana and other Puranas, they're not non-authentic, but they don't carry the same weight as Bhagavad Purana or Valmiki Ramayana. But it's just, in case you're getting confused, don't get confused. Just step back from the whole scene and understand. During different days we're accustomed to hearing one primary version, the Valmiki Ramayana version, or the story of Ratnakar. At least I'm used to hearing either of those two, but there are other days of Brahma and other versions of from where did Valmiki come, who was the father, who was the parents. Descendants of Bhrigu. And I think that's a main topic that I wanted to cover, and I want to also express this one. There's some further details about his life. Excuse me for this. And I'm going to go into those further details about his life. But I think you'll find the interesting, that document that you should have received, will be educational. There's details and details. And it's easy to get lost in details. So, here is from a text called Lagu Bhagavatamrita. In case you don't know what that is. It's a book written by Rupa Goswami. And along with Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this is one of his chief works. Lagu Bhagavatamrita, as you can see, is very thick. He wrote the book, and he wrote the commentary on each of the verses of the entire book. And essentially what the book is about is avatars of Vishnu. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 1, Chapter 3, there's a very partial list of avatars of Vishnu, because that's one of the 6 questions that's in Chapter 1. The sages Shaunaka wanted to hear from Sutta Goswami about avatars of Vishnu. And there's a list, mini list. And then that mini list is expanded in Lagu Bhagavatamrita with reference from other sources besides that mini list. And it's very robust. And here's a little description taken directly from Lagu Bhagavatamrita about Ramachandra. Splendid as a new blade of durva grass, and accompanied by Sumitra's 2 sons and by Bharata, he appeared in the Treta Yuga of the 24th Chatur Yuga as the son of Kaushalya and Dasarath. Now that's significant to note is we're in the 27th cycle of Vivasvata Manu, the Yuga cycle. And so it's quite a big gap of time when Ramachandra appeared. And when Krishna appeared, or our present day of Manu. Here is the same thing is said in the Vayu Purana. Valmiki was the Veda Vyas in the 24th Yuga cycle of Vivasvata Manu. Now Veda Vyas means not only he Valmiki wrote about Ramayana, he compiled the Vedas. Because that's what Veda Vyas does. The sound vibration form was put in a written form. And he did it according to Vayu Purana. We're currently in the 28th Chatur Yuga cycle instead of the 24th. In the description, who Valmiki was before he was Valmiki, or how did he become born from an anthill, that we touched on, then in Valmiki Ramayana we find this little scene depicted here. Narada visits the ashram of Valmiki. And, it's by a river, and there's Bhardraj Muni, who's his assistant, and they have some conversation. In the very first verse of Valmiki Ramayana, Valmiki the ascetic questioned eloquent Narada, foremost among the sages, always devoted to austerities and study of the sacred texts. And Valmiki wanted to know, what are the symptoms of a true hero? And then there is a certain set of questions that are presented to Narada. You can see where this references the very, very, very beginning of Valmiki Ramayana. Who in this world today is virtuous? Who is powerful and knows Dharma? Who is grateful, truthful, and firm of vows? Who has good character traits? Who is kindly disposed toward all living beings? Who is learned and competent? Who has an appearance an appearance uniquely pleasant? Who is self-possessed and has control of his anger? Who is brilliant and non-envious? Who is feared even by the demigods when enraged in battle? Those are his various questions found in those early verses of Valmiki Ramayana. And in response to those several questions, there are 74 verses in which, in a summary way, the story of Ramachandra is narrated. Valmiki is hearing from Narada. Valmiki learns about Ramachandra from Narada. Then Narada instructed Valmiki to meditate on Lord Ram and write Ramayana. It's right in the beginning of Ramayana. So there's the scene again. And Narada departs. Here's Narada's benediction. Whoever reads this history of Rama, which is purifying, destructive of sin, holy, and the equal of the Vedas, is freed from all sins. A man who reads this Ramayana story, which leads to long life, will after death rejoice in heaven together with his sons, grandsons, and attendants. A Brahmana who reads it becomes eloquent. A Kshatriya becomes a lord of the earth. A Vaishya acquires profit from his goods, and even a lowly Shudra achieves greatness. Benediction, Pala, Stuti. So there he goes, off from where he came, and Valmiki is going to follow his instruction, that is, meditate on these 74 verses that he heard, kind of summarizing the life of Ramachandra and answering those several questions that he had. And after meditating for one muhurta on what he had heard from Narada, something happened. He went to the river to take his morning bath, and when he was at the river, he saw a hunter had shot an arrow in a krancha bird. And very much out of character, he uttered a curse of the hunter. And when he heard the words coming from his mouth, he was shocked. Like, where did this come from? Here's the curse. "O hunter, because you have killed the male bird and separated it from its companion when they were approaching the peak of their passion, you will be condemned for all ages to come. May you never find peace of mind for endless years." You know, the standard meter of Ramayana, which was not a common meter, by the way, Anustup meter, and arising from shoka, or grief. Right after he uttered these words, he was surprised. Again, because it was rhyming, and it was out of character to speak such harsh words. And it is understood by the scholars of Ramayana, or the lovers of Ramayana, that this verse is the Mangalacharana, because it reveals the mood of the author. Bharadraj noticed how his spiritual master's emotions, while contemplating this sloka of shoka, had swung from intense rage to deep remorse to beguiling delight. Bharadraj was wise enough not to judge a great soul for his occasional peculiar behavior. So they went back to the ashram. And when they went back to the ashram, Narada paid a visit. Brahma paid a visit. There's the four-headed Brahma on the left. And Brahma disclosed that it was I who inspired you to utter those verses. Don't you know that it was at my direction, that Saraswati, the goddess of speech, uttered through your lips the seeming curse? The words that cause your innocent heart a world of anxiety shall bring unto you boundless fame. That is, this profound meditation on what he had just seen, the killing of the Krancha bird and the words that he spoke in response. Doubt no more. Dive deep into the story of Ram, even as you have heard it from my son Narada. What nobler subject for your poem than Sri Ramachandra, the divine hero, the soul of righteousness, the perfect embodiment of all that is good and great. So there's an instruction from Lord Brahma to Valmiki. Now, further commentary. Likewise, in his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that when Hiranyakashipu insulted Prahlad, or when Jarasandha insulted Krishna, Goddess Saraswati had them speak in such a way that they were actually glorifying Prahlad and Krishna, respectively. In the Sanskrit of this verse in Ramayana, the curse verse, Saraswati is not referred to directly. However, Govindaraj, this celebrated Sri Vaishnava commentator, explains that it was Saraswati's inspiration that resulted in this verse, indicated, at Lord Brahma's indication. So, the very next section of the beginning parts of Valmiki Ramayana is the importance of a guru and the qualities of a guru. They're also very much described in detail. They're very, very, very nice. For all that befell Ram, Lakshman, Sita, and men, and monkeys, gods and rakshasas, their acts, their words, even their very thoughts, known or secret, whether in public or private, will be revealed to you. This is a second benediction, besides the instruction to write. Nothing that comes out of your mouth, consciously or otherwise, shall be false. Now, compose the holy story of Rama, fashioned into slokas to delight the heart of men, perfect in its rhythm and melodious in its flow. So the Anushtup meter is the meter that curse was uttered, and that's the meter that the whole Ramayana is written. And Valmiki is now an empowered personality. It's in my way of thinking, it's very simple, similar to Lord Chaitanya instructing Rupa and Sanatan, empowering Rupa and Sanatan to understand everything that he had just explained to them, and then instructing them to write what they had understood. It's the same principle. The personality of Godhead instructing Rupa and Sanatan, and here is Lord Brahma instructing Valmiki. Beyond even, things that you didn't hear, you'll know. The meaning behind those things that you didn't know and didn't hear, you'll know the meaning behind. The feelings of all the personalities. I mean, that's like very special. What a gift for an author or composer or someone that's going to tell a wonderful history, empowered by Lord Brahma. So that means Valmiki was a very special personality. I will reveal to you the entire Mula Ramayana. Now, he didn't compose or compile the entire Mula Ramayana, means the version of Ramayana that's existing in the heavenly realm. 100,000 verses. It's very different. Brahma blesses, this poem will be flawless, For as long as the mountains and rivers flourish on earth, the legend of Rama will flourish in this world. And for as long as the Ramayana flourishes, the world will know and celebrate you along with the Ramayana. Now, it's not like he wanted name and fame. He was a pure personality, a sinless personality. And because of that, he's being given this pile upon mountains of blessings from Lord Brahma. But Brahma wanted the world to receive from a qualified person. Valmiki was that qualified person. In the background, you can see in this B.G. Sharma painting, there's the hunter, there's the crane, there's the river. And Valmiki begins to compose. He's meditating on what he just heard. Now, in the narration, Sita takes refuge at Valmiki's ashram. Here's a little description. Sita, was sent away by Lord Ramachandra at a certain point, and he's already compiled, because he had the ability past, present, and future. Like Vyasadeva, he is said to be the Veda Vyas of his age. So as Veda Vyas, past, present, and future, could know things, so also Valmiki, and he compiled the whole Ramayana. And then when Sita was banished, she came and gave birth to her 2 sons, and then the Valmiki became the guru, or the instructor, teaching them how to sing Ramayana, because Ramayana is meant to be sung. I mean, it can be read or recited, but the intention with certain meter, etc., was it's meant to be sung. So he trained them in the meaning, the feelings, everything that he had, he passed on to these 2 boys. Kusha and Lava are shown singing in front of a sacrificial fire. So at a certain point in time, the 2 boys came without announcing who they were, and Valmiki brought them, and on one side there's Valmiki and sages, and then some of his disciples, and then there's Ramachandra, and they're before a sacrificial fire, and they're hearing these 2 boys sing Valmiki Ramayana. Very amazing. So he asked, who are these boys? Now, this is another reference, a third reference, that according to Vayu Purana, Valmiki was the Veda Vyas of that particular yuga cycle of Vaivasvata Manu. Laghu Bhagavatamrita says, splendid, we read this phrase already taken from Laghu Bhagavatamrita about Ramachandra, the son of Kaushalya and Dasarath. And the reference from Laghu Bhagavatamrita is taken from both Vayu and Matsya Purana. That is to say, when Rupa Goswami was compiling Laghu Bhagavatamrita, he was very knowledgeable, instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when he wrote, it wasn't creative writing. When he wrote, he was speaking things, he would make a statement. This is standard. He would make a statement and then support the statement with scriptural reference. So these 2 primary sources, Vayu and Matsya Purana, were sources where Rupa Goswami, was drawing upon to describe the appearance of the personality. You've got, of all the avatars, there's details and details, very, very amazing details discussing these points. I recently came across something I think it's relevant to share. In the life of Dasarath, he was cursed by a blind man. You know the story. So Jiva Goswami adds to the story. So the son, Dasarath had this mystic power that was gifted by. He didn't undergo mystic yoga. He was gifted with a power that he could fire arrows without seeing the target, but just based on sound. So one time he was in the forest practicing his hunting skills, and he heard the sound, but sounded to him like an animal drinking water from a river. So following the sound, he shot an arrow, and he heard a human cry. And when he heard the human cry, he was stunned. He went to where the cry came from, and it was a young boy. And the young boy saw the king. He didn't know he was the king, but he said, I've please take care of my blind father and mother. I came here to this river to get them water because they're very thirsty. And now they're waiting for me to come back. I'm not going to be able to come back. So please take care of my mother and father. So Dasarath felt terrible. One can imagine what his feelings were. He picked up the young boy in his arms and brought the young boy, following the indication of the young boy where his father and mother were, and he found them. And when he found them, he felt even worse because in fact they were blind, and he explained everything to the father. While he's explaining, the boy expired. So he placed the boy in his father's lap. And the father then cursed him. You know this part. He cursed him that as I will be leaving this world during the time of the parting of my son, so you will also leave this world at the departure of your son. Something like that. And then the part that Jiva Goswami adds is from another Purana. The father was a learned man. So the father began to consider, why did this misfortune come to me? And then knowing the scripture, he said there are two reasons. I didn't properly respect a deity. I came to a certain place where there was a deity, and I didn't offer my proper respect to the deity. Maybe that's the reason this misfortune came to me. Or, according to scripture, if one sees a Vaishnava wearing tilak and kuntimala and the signs of a Vaishnava, and neglects offering, even in their mind, neglects offering proper respect, then this great misfortune can come to such person. Now, it doesn't go further what this other Purana says, like what the context was. He just mentions. But that's the way that, one of the ways that our acharyas made their writings. They were vastly learned, as we know from the prayers to the six Goswamis, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipyuno Sad Dharma Sangstapako, etc. Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane. So they were very well learned. They weren't just bookworms. They were very interested in the personality of Godhead and truths related to the personality of Godhead, and with that fascination, that enthusiasm, they became very familiar. They had a vast library of very old sacred texts, original copies of those sacred texts. Where those copies are, we don't know. but they had access to them and made reference to them in their writings. So this was a practice of like these two references from Vayu Purana and Matsya Purana. These explanations, mainly the explanation here, it is from those sources. That's our great acharyas that had vast knowledge in various scriptural sources and gave their renderings for the rest of us on what these various scriptures have to say. Let's step back and end with this. The appearance of Valmiki may come or does come in different days of Brahma. Commonly, it's during the 24th Yuga cycle of each Manu, and then in each of the days of because there's 14 Manus in each day of Brahma. So it's different Manus and different Brahmas, and the different appearances of appearances of the Lord or associates of the Lord and things like that. So expect that there'll be different versions, or don't be surprised when you find different versions. Because it doesn't mean if this one's right, then that can't be right. Yeah, well, that's got to be wrong because if this is right. But it's at different days of Brahma. Kalpa Beta. And different yuga cycles of different Manus. So there's variety, but there's a general thread within all these varieties. The purpose of this, for those of you who came a bit late, I was asked, because in preparation for celebrations of Ram Navami, please discuss the topics of personalities from Ramayana, because I made a very lengthy presentation in Portland, Oregon some time ago on this topic. They requested, so I did. And that's what this is. It's a retelling of something that was already presented. But to understand the context of Ramayana by understanding the personalities that make up Ramayana, like this Valmiki Ramayana, we hear about him in the beginning and we hear about him in the end. And during the middle, we don't hear so much about Valmiki. He's the author, but it's not about him, it's about Ramachandra. But there's an introduction to the personality, which we spent some time discussing. And then in the conclusion, because Ramachandra, has two sons. And the two sons become trained by Valmiki to sing Ramayana, his composition. And you can't get a better instructor with all the musical accompaniment, etc. I mean, it must have been a thrilling experience and a spiritually uplifting. So he wanted to know, who are these two boys? And Valmiki revealed, they're your sons. It's a very special explanation or narration. Valmiki Ramayana, very special. So during the course of certain evenings while I'm here, some other personalities will we be discussing Hanuman and Vibhishan and different personalities. So let's see how it goes. Would anybody like to discuss any of these points or raise some questions? What happened after that? They eventually, when Ramachandra departed, they took over the responsibility of the kingdom. What? Oh, I don't know what happened. That lineage after their descendants. I don't know. Do you know? They had descendants. They became kings, which means they had queens. That's your question. The answer is I don't know. But if you come across the answer, let me know. Huh?
I forgot now.
Okay. When you find something on the internet, this is recommendation or advice, check the source. Gobbledygook. It's like, watching something on TV in India. People learn the wrong history from the TV in India. Yeah, without elaborating. So when you read, it's okay. Search however you want to search, but if you find something, go to the source and see if it actually matches what the source says. I've done that many times and found it's not even close. I beg your pardon? No, you have to go to the Purana. No, what I'm saying is, not that it says it's in the Purana, but you go to the Purana. Like in our acharyas, they make reference. But, here's a practical example, something I was recently dealing with. With coming up soon is Ramanujacharya's appearance. Now that's not so long ago. But would you believe it? There are multiple versions and they're very different. For example, when he received his mantra, what happened? There's at least 10 different versions of what happened. Without listing what those 10 versions are, because it's like confusing. So one of the things that I did is I asked a devotee that's from a Sri Vaishnava tradition to go to the teacher, the sadhu, that he knows from the Sri Vaishnava tradition and ask what the sadhu says. What's the real story? And guess what? They don't all agree. So what's the real story? I mean, you read something on the internet, be careful. That's my point. If you want to just get an answer that doesn't, whether it's correct or not, that's one way. Yeah, if that's, and here's another problem. What's the real Mahabharata? Ask Madhvacharya. Here's what Madhvacharya says. From a devotee that's a scholar, a Sanskrit scholar. Madhvacharya says it's so corrupted. The original text of Mahabharata is undiscernible. There are portions, because Madhvacharya was super scholar, and not just a smart man. He was he was who he was. And there are many versions of. So he wrote Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnayas on sections of Mahabharata that are not in question, and he didn't write on other portions of Mahabharata because they're in question. The point I'm making is, if you want an answer to a question, you have to be willing to sacrifice, and examine very carefully before you reach a conclusion, because you can reach a wrong conclusion. It's easy. Falling off a log is easy. Reaching a wrong conclusion is easy. Therefore, like they're stalwart acharyas, at least in our line, the Rupa, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They had the acumen and the resource of the original manuscripts, so they could verify what's authentic and what's not. And they didn't bother to write about what's not. They didn't put it on the internet. I have lots of experience with this. Yes, you want to say something?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So online, Nityanand Pran Prabhu is saying, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 12, details the lineage of Kushum.
Lineage of Kusha. Canto 9.
Chapter 12.
Chapter
12.
12. You want to check it out? Okay. Wow, he's in a Ayurvedic clinic in India. I guess he knows what the topic is because he's a Ramayana lover. Okay. You gonna check it out? Good. Anyone else? You have something?
Yes, I just needed a clarification, Maharaj. You said there are possibly 2 offenses that I think Dasharatha did, like not.
No.
So someone
No,
else.
the father who had this misfortune that his son was killed, the blind father was a learned man. And the blind father wanted to know, he was questioning, what misdeed did I do? What offense did I make to bring this misfortune upon me? Clear?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. So when you are narrating the story of the blind person who cursed King Dasharatha,
Yeah.
so what actually we can learn from that pastime, like how to apply in that our life, in our
Oh,
life?
very easy. 2 things. Consider offense to be grievous. 2, even when it's casual, it can, like, just because one of the 2 options that he presented was, it may be, he wasn't thinking of a particular event that happened where he saw someone with Vaishnav tilak neck beads and markings of a Vaishnava, and in my mind, the way it's written, I didn't respect them. So, it's serious. I mean, at least from a learned person, the blind father, it's serious enough that a great misfortune could happen. His blindness is now no longer going to be taken care of by his son because his son is gone. What great misfortune. Could you speak slower? Yeah. And he got a consequence. But, the father had a consequence for something that he, in his mind, he did. So, in this case, the father, who wasn't necessarily a big sadhu, he cursed him. You're going to have to undergo this loss of your life in the way that I have, in feeling pain of separation of your son, which happened. Yeah. So then back to the father. Maybe there's two possibilities that, from his knowledge of the scripture, this kind of grievous misfortune could come to me. One was a mental offense. So mental offenses are also serious. You could go go the other direction and say, I better not associate with Vaishnavas because maybe I can make an unintentional offense and I get a big reaction. Yeah, don't stay away from Vaishnavas because you might make some offense. When you're with Vaishnavas, recognize the great fortune that's there and be, duly respectful, at least according to your capacity. Now, this was a learned man. It wasn't just a fellow. Yeah, our speech and our actions, both, body, mind, and words, should be directed properly. You're speaking really fast. My hearing isn't so good. But microphone, if he speaks fast, I won't be able to hear either.
What I'm saying is like Dasratha didn't do intentionally or
That's right.
knowingly, right?
That's right. And he had a big reaction.
It happened unknowingly.
Yeah.
Even he don't know that it's.
But he had a big reaction because he killed
Yeah.
a young boy, thinking it's an animal, but it wasn't an animal. So be careful. Be super careful. You may be this and that. He's an exalted person. He has the personality of Godhead as his sons. The 4 Vishnu Murti personalities as his son. He's a very qualified person. You have to be very careful, regardless of how elevated one may be. What to speak of not so elevated. Be very careful. That's all.
Whether intentionally or unintentional.
Yeah, intentional is worse, and unintentional is also bad. There's consequences.
But unintentional mistakes were forgivable.
Slowly.
Unintentional mistakes were forgivable, right? We can forgive if somebody.
Unintentional mistakes are what?
We can forgive them, right?
Forgivable?
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
But he didn't. He got a curse from the top.
Well, the father was upset. His son, who was his only eyes, was taken.
That's acceptable if it's in normal human beings. But
But you want to analyze what the father did. Go right ahead. You want to justify. Go ahead. You're free to do so. Second guess him. Go ahead. Be careful. Now, did the father get a consequence for cursing Dasarath because Dasarath's an elevated person that didn't do anything intentionally harmful? Did he get a reaction for cursing Dasarath? Read another Ramayana. Probably Mula Ramayana has the answer to that. I don't. But just because you feel this urge, and then you speak harshly. Or curse or whatever.
yeah,
It's not okay. It's not okay.
it is acceptable if they are normal human beings. But being sadhu, you should think about it, right?
Yeah. Come on. Whether you're sadhu or just a regular fellow, be careful.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yes.
There are greater consequences for elevated persons, lesser consequences for less elevated, lesser consequences for those that do things unintentionally. There's consequences, degrees. So be careful, always. Okay, someone else? Could you, whoa, slow down. She's got a loud voice. Go ahead. She wants to without a voice. She wants without a microphone. Go ahead.
Ramayana doesn't happen in every
No.
Like there are 4 cycles in the process.
Yeah.
So the 4 cycles, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Krishna, all those don't happen in 3 4.
That's correct. Well, we heard it 2 times. Here it is a 3rd time. It's right on the screen. The 24th of the 4 yuga cycles, the 24th Chatur Yuga of Vaivasvata Manu, is when Ramachandra appears and Valmiki composes Ramayana. And then cycle number 25, 20, 26, 27, during this 28th of the Chatur Yuga cycles, that's when Krishna appears. That's where we are now. And then each Manu rules for a period of 71 Yuga cycles. And there's 14 Manus. To do the math, once in a day of Brahma, Ramchandra appears. Do the math. Okay? Clear? That's a big span of time. Yeah.
Then when they say 5,000 years ago Krishna has appeared, continuously.
But that's the previous Dwapara Yuga before this Kali Yuga. And then that's when Krishna appeared in the 28th Yuga cycle of Vaivasvata Manu. And dial back and back and back and back, and you get the 24th Yuga cycle. That's when Ramachandra appears. Is it clear?
Then we are lucky then.
Oh yeah, you count your lucky stars.
Because that doesn't happen in Yuga.
You're repeating yourself. Yes. Very special. Anyone else? Okay.
So Master confirmed now before BC 5000.
Say it again.
So Master confirmed that Lord Shri Krishna exists before BC 5000.
I don't know what you're saying. Do you know what you're saying? I don't know what you're saying. You dial the clock, dial time back 5,000 years plus, because we say 5,000 years for every year, still 5,000 years. But when the Yuga cycle turns from Dwapara to Kali Yuga, Krishna appeared towards the end of Dwapara Yuga, before Kali Yuga begins. In the previous Yuga, that's when Krishna appeared, at the end. And that's 5,000, roughly, plus. That answers? Okay.